Alright, welcome to my video on how to build a Stalder press. So for level 1, for our first mobility exercise, we have a pancake. Obviously the more flexible our pancake the better, but more important than being just super bendy in this position is the ability to create tension and have some stability. Obviously once you start pressing with the shoulders, you need to be able to maintain good position through the hips, so that's really important. My next stretch is a wall bar stretch. I really like this. It's kind of like a Jefferson curl, but initiated from the upper body more so than the lower body. I find people that tend to planche excessively and can't get the upper back to round and start the press and rely on the anterior delts rather than serratus. This is super helpful. And then we'll move on to a narrow straddle Jefferson curl. Narrow straddle just to sort of mimic the articulation of the spine with a bit of a straddle. Not super important, but it just provides a little change up to your normal Jefferson curls, which you should be doing. Really important to try and release at the bottom and really lengthen the spine. Hip flexors are able to contract much better in that position, so important to try and train that because those hip flexors want to be able to contract well to be able to press well. This takes care of level 1 of the mobility side of things, and we'll move over into the strength. So first up we have a bent-legged Straddle L hold. You'll need to elevate your hands up a bit here. You can use whatever you like. I try to make sure my palms are just outside my shoulders very slightly, and then work on trying to pull my knees up into my armpits. This will be where you need to start when a regular Straddle L is too hard for you. Next up we'll be moving into the press handstand. If you don't have a press handstand, you shouldn't be training the Stalder yet. It's pretty simple. You can train some of these bits, but your main focus should be on building up a Stalder. Always trying to do a nice eccentric down, a little bit of showing off there, and then we're moving on to the tuck planche. This is one of the big ones that a lot of people tend to miss in training for a Stalder. If you look at the movement around the shoulder when you start pressing for a Stalder, it is very similar to what we do in a tuck planche press. Not sure why this is so dark, but this is the beginning of level 2 mobility. Middle split swim through. Forgive my lack of flatness in the splits, I did this completely cold, so not my best effort, but that doesn't matter. And then we are missing a video there. Anywho, next up, Eccentric Tuck Planche. The video might come later. From handstand, pulling your knees down and then focusing on moving around the shoulder into your tuck planche and holding for a few seconds. To start off with, it won't be that good. That's fine. Level 2 strength, Straddle L hold. This is soul crushing. Everyone hates it. I know, it sucks. Just spend time here, get comfortable. 3x20 is a good place to start with. And here is my other mobility movement that I was going to say earlier on. Straddle a stand. Again, this may make your brain melt a bit at first, and you might need to elevate your butt, your hands, whatever. Get it going from the floor in the long term though, and your Stalder will thank you. Moving on to level 3. This isn't really a necessity, but I think it's a good one to work on, seeing as we're already doing the reps with our hands, trying to do straddle to stand with no hands. This means that you have a nice long straddle position. You can get your center of mass far enough to stand up. And then next up we are doing press handstand into eccentric Stalder. Do tons of these. Make sure your feet aren't going too wide in the eccentric. I think it's really important to bring them in a little bit narrower. You actually stay in a better position with slightly narrower legs. Next up, this one just kind of overloads the shoulders a little bit, and I find it is really useful for overcoming the plateau of trying to turn an eccentric Stalder into a proper Stalder, so eccentric through to L sit. Hopefully you'll be rewarded with a nice Stalder press to handstand. This should be the final product. Your first one probably won't look like that. Your 10th one probably won't look like that, but that's alright. You'll get there eventually. Just keep putting in the work. In the comments, I'll put some ideas for working towards harder variations.